for the podcast viewers. What is up, freaks? Welcome back to Rabbit Hole Recap. I'm coming to you live from some South Beach. It's cold down here. That's why I've got a hoodie on. We're going to try the live stream. Freaks, Matt, stay on top of the chat just in case my audio goes. I'm just going to unplug.
You just asked me to keep an eye on the chat?
For the quality of the audio, yeah, I think it's necessary.
Noted.
What's going on? I wanted to keep the conversation going, but we're not going to be doing that.
What
we were talking
about? Yeah. I mean, let's. Why don't we start with the fact that you dropped three podcasts on the Freaks yesterday?
I had to do it to him. I had to fucking do it to him. Too much bullishness. Citadel Dispatch. You got that file to me a little too late Tuesday night, and I was like already in bed, and I was like, I don't feel like going up to actually upload it. So I did that first thing. Wednesday morning, I cross-posted an episode of Gamcast 2 TFTC because I thought it was important. Alex Epstein, who wrote the moral case for fossil fuels. Really interesting perspective. If you want to check it out, go check it out. You should check it out to get this perspective. Very, very different approach to the debate around energy consumption and its effect on climate. And then I recorded with Paul Atoy from Sphinx Chat, and I had every intention before we hit record of actually dropping this Monday morning, next Monday. And after recording, and then immediately after recording, I listened to it like right away. And I was just like, this has to go up. It's too bullish. There's too much going on here.
Fucking love it.
So sorry for the content flood, freaks. I hope you enjoyed it. If you're listening now, if you're listening YouTube, Periscope, wherever it may be, smash that like, that subscribe, that retweet. Let's get it out there. Matt, you're just saying you're looking forward to the weekend. I'm as well. This week feels like it's dragging.
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready for the weekend. Let's fucking go.
Yeah. So
it's been a good week though. It's been one of the crazy things that happened this week that we went from 55K on Friday, then we broke all-time highs. We broke 60K. We went to 61, right? And then when the markets opened up again on Monday morning, we were like $800 away from the Friday close. It was like 55 again, which I just thought is like a weird thing. It's like there's like this whole group of traders. There's like a whole group of traders now that have entered the market that don't even realize really what like happens during the weekend.
Yeah. Very odd price movement. And there was that whole debate about the coins that moved on Gemini, whose they were. Was it a whale dumping? Was it an internal movement of UTXOs from Gemini? Was it BlockFi? Who cares? Like, but people are going to move Bitcoin. Like, don't try to like, you're like, oh, the price is going to dump. Don't try and time it. Just stay humble, stack sats.
Well, it's interesting, right? Because it was actually CryptoQuant that they have a Telegram channel that has, like 30,000 traders in it. So as soon as they send out a notification saying 18,000 Bitcoin have deposited in Gemini, all of a sudden, all these traders all market sell at the same time and like close out their positions, right? So there's two things to take away from it. And then after that, a competing analysis provider, Glassnode, said that was an internal transfer. They don't think that was an actual whale deposit. So they've been arguing back and forth over that. But there's like two interesting takeaways there, right? The first takeaway is because Bitcoin's ledger is transparent, like these whales can do a lot of things to manipulate the markets if they just by just moving their funds around, right? And then the second thing is like, I know it's a free market, we can't stop anyone, right? But there should be, I guess, at least at those companies, there should be some introspective here, like a post-mortem where they think about like their role in the industry, right? Like they should take, it's not just sending out a Telegram message, right? You cause, and if you get it wrong, you can cause your clients, your traders, the people that are receiving your messages, you can cause them a lot of money lost. So like you should probably be pretty responsible about that.
Yeah. It's, I'm happy I'm not in the world trading. If any of you are new to Bitcoin and think you're going to trade your way to wealth, it's highly unlikely. There are certainly successful traders out there. It's just easier. I love that I don't have to pay attention to that. I'm not in that crypto quant telegram. Like, what the hell are these whales do? Who cares? Who cares? Just keep stacking. There's going to be whales coming in and out. They're going to try and move the price. You just stay steadfast. Just keep
Cheers to
stacking.
that.
Don't worry about the price. Worry about your stack. But speaking of price, the current price of Bitcoin is $57,940 according to Clark Moody's dashboard. One cuck buck's going to get you 1,726 sats. Current market capitalization of the Bitcoin network is $1,800,000,000,000. I had to think in my head. I was like, what is 1.1? It's billion and million, 800 million. $1,800,000,000 currently. We are block height 675,203. 88.85% of all the Bitcoin that will ever be distributed to the market have been distributed via the protocol. We got a difficulty adjustment coming tomorrow, 157 blocks away. Again, we had a 1.3 downward adjustment a couple of weeks ago. Right now, as of this point, between difficulty adjustment epochs or between difficulty adjustants,
Marty,
so
it's 1,080,000,000,000, not 800 million.
Are the freaks confirming this?
The freaks brought it up, but then I checked and it's 1.08, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 80 million.
Are you sure? Freaks?
Yeah, shout out to the freaks.
Wait, it's a 1.09. That's 900 million.
90 million.
Then 1.1 would be 1 trillion.
100 million.
No, it's trillion. It would be billion. I think I'm right. I think you freaks are wrong.
Oh, yeah. 80 billion. Correct.
Yeah.
But you said 800 billion, right?
No, I said 800 million.
Okay, well, the freaks confused me. God damn it. Yeah, it's 1,080,000,000,000. It's above $1 trillion. The market
80
cap's
billion.
80 billion. I think you said
Yeah, because then it'll get
800.
to 100 billion. And then
I think you said
it'll go-
800, right?
Yeah. I said 800 million. I was wrong. I was two decimal
The
places
important
wrong.
thing is it's 1,080,000,000,000.
I love you guys. I hope you love
good.
your boomer Uncle Marty who can't do math. I fell down the stairs earlier this week, man. My head's a little groggy. I'm sorry.
Everyone was wrong. Everyone was wrong though. But the important thing is that Bitcoin passed $1 trillion.
Everyone was wrong. We can find solace in that. Difficulty adjustment coming in 157 blocks, estimated right now to be a 1.7% upward adjustment. That's because blocks are currently coming in 9 seconds faster than the 10-minute block target at 9 minutes 51 seconds. There are 40,364 transactions in Clark's mempool. Mempool's been pretty thin last few days during the week. I wouldn't be surprised if it fully clears this weekend.
You want to bet? There's no way it's not going to clear this weekend, Marty.
Yeah, it's got to clear this weekend. Okay. Well, the fee estimates, there's a 7 sat per byte for a week on Clark's dashboard. So I think it clears.
Hasn't cleared yet this year, Marty.
Samurai Whirlpool liquidity right now, again, hovering in the same spot it has been the last few weeks, 1,983.9 BTC or $114.9 million or cuck bucks worth of liquidity, whatever's tickling your fancy. Ain't nothing is right. Ain't nothing is right. I'm not going to bring it up. You asked me not to. I'm not going to bring it up. What should we start with today? Big list. Should we start bullish? I mean, should we route back to what we were talking about? Why I posted 3 episodes? Like, I think what's going on in the Sphinx chat, once they figure it, like, once they flesh out all the UX onboarding issues and the implementation for different phone carriers, the idea is extremely solid. One of the most solid app ideas built on Bitcoin that I've come across to date.
So fucking bullish. It would behoove me to say that it is a beta product still. Like it's not very stable on Android. So I haven't really, if the freaks are wondering why I haven't been participating that much there, I'm lurking, but I lose messages and stuff. So I don't even receive, sometimes I won't even receive a message and I don't even know. So I haven't been using it as much as I would like. But super cool concept.
Very cool. And having had the pleasure to sit down and chat with Paul for an hour and 20 minutes. This dude's a visionary. He gets it. You can do all this really cool stuff on Bitcoin, and people are, I think, one of my favorite tweets of today came from, I don't want to get her name out, Elise Killeen. She said, folks pumping non-fungible screensavers while Bitcoiners are over here decentralized telecoms, which is essentially what Sphinx is. They're rebuilding WeChat. WeChat is a robust app in China, but without the surveillance, without the centralization. Like, the utilities that's going to be provided from this is going to be massive.
I don't think that's, I get the play, and I saw you tweet that out too, but I don't think that's as big of a branding win of a motto as you think it is.
I mean, obviously we don't want the social credit score or like the cutting off of people.
What about censorship resistant Signal with payments?
It's so much more than that, though. It's a podcast player. You can't play podcast in Signal.
I mean, you can send an MP3 in Signal.
It's true. It's true. Actually, this is a good debate here too. Is Paul and I were talking about it this morning. A lot of freaks being like, "Why do we do this? Why, like, there's other free privacy apps out there. They're not really free, right? Like, Signal depends on donations. They just started accepting Bitcoin donations. I'm sure you have that on the list somewhere.
Cross it off the list.
You cross it off the list?
No, it's on the list. But now we've covered it.
So they have to monetize via like hoping people donate. And then Telegram, big article in the Wall Street Journal yesterday. Like they're in a shit ton of debt. If you don't remember, they did an ICO, like a TON token that they had to shut down because the SEC
they refunded
was like,
the whole token.
Yeah. Now they're going to investors like Jared Leto, and they have to go like raise a bunch of debt, I believe, between.
But they already raised from Leto. Leto or
yeah.
Leto. The thing is, Telegram's weird because they just haven't implemented a business model yet. There is no business model.
Well, did you read the Wall Street Journal article?
No, I kind of. Like I saw
want to insert ads in public channels and then have Apple and Google.
So first of all, I have a love-hate relationship with Telegram. Okay. I think it's a really fantastic app, but it's obviously centralized, right? And the encryption is questionable on the secret chats, and they don't have encryption by default. All that said, it's a very interesting situation he finds himself in because he made a lot of money. Durov made a lot of money on Russian Facebook, right? And the Russian version of Facebook, and then got into a fight with Putin, and was forced to sell his shares. And then when he left Russia, he created Telegram, which is why, like, one of my favorite pet theories is that was just all a manufactured fight between him and Putin. And really it's a Russian state operation. But anyway, that's besides the point. Up until this point, they've never implemented a business model, right? But they have all of these public channels, like we said earlier, like CryptoQuant and stuff, where they have hundreds of thousands of viewers, right? Of viewers of those channels. And Durov has explicitly said multiple times that he doesn't want to do like what Facebook does and like troll people's messages and give them targeted ads. He doesn't want to monetize user attention and monetize user information. So what their path to monetization is he wants to give those public channel creators, right? No, if you look at some of these public channels, they serve ads as a post. They'll do like a sponsored post that pops up in the feed, in the middle of the feed, and they'll say this, use our sponsor here. Durov, he wants to include it. He wants to build it in and then take a cut so that any of those channels can add in ads if they want to, and then he takes a cut, which is a different business model than something like a Facebook chat or like a Google.
Yeah, you're still adding ads though, the monetize.
But it's optional, and it's the creator that's deciding.
Yeah.
It's like what YouTube does right here. But obviously YouTube does way more tracking than Durov says he's going to do.
Yeah. If you're on YouTube, smash that subscribe button. Like we need to get. I'm kidding. Yeah. But like, I guess the point I'm trying to get to is these apps aren't free. Oh, these are free, the apps, but they're at the end of the day, as is evident the amount of debt that comes in and the need for to raise money to develop the applications. So many models competing here now. Sphinx is, camera done. There's my.
Yep, you started breaking up for the first time.
God damn it. All right. Well, we're gonna still live. I guess it's just audio now, but it's highlighting the fact that I guess Sphinx is hopping in here now as a competitor with a new different model, a value for value model. So we'll see. We'll see what wins the day. I'm very bullish, very, very bullish.
No, yeah, I mean, I think that's the future regardless, right? And I wouldn't be surprised if you see these centralized platforms move to a similar monetization model, at least, right? Like, so you could like easily see Lightning paywalls and streaming value built into something like Telegram as well, even if you don't get the censorship resistant benefits.
Like in like their Jitsi integration, I tested it out for the first time today with a couple of people at Great American Mining, and it's like flawless. Like I wish if Jitsi had the ability to record the audio, we would not be using Zoom. It's a much better experience.
What Jitsi integration?
In Sphinx, like you could technically do like a Clubhouse like application in Sphinx, just leveraging Jitsi. Yeah. Yeah. So you could have everybody in our tribe and you just start a Jitsi call. And it's basically like a Clubhouse room.
That's interesting.
In the browser. Right. And it's not, Agora is not. You haven't been on there.
It's, the freaks might not realize because I have a Twitter addiction, but I really don't like social media, period. So, and Clubhouse is just a massive sink. It's just a massive time sink.
Yeah, it's a massive time sink and it's a lot of circular conversations. That's why like I've made it an effort to only like participate in very focused rooms. Like today I got asked to do one with a buddy who I did a digital design boot camp with like many, many moons ago. And we just talked specifically one-on-one in the chat about designing products for Bitcoin, how designers can help out building out products on top of Bitcoin. That was a very interesting conversation and it's good. I love that designers are beginning to think about creating UX and UI design processes with Bitcoin in mind because it's different, right? You're building on a distributed network that has many layers with different conditions from which you need to approach it.
It still kind of rubs me as like a new normal kind of thing, like our governments like condition us and tell us that we have to stay home, right? And then all conversations move over to like Zoom and Clubhouse, and you're having these conversations that you used to have in a bar or something, and instead it's like the whole world has a wiretap on your conversation while you're having it.
Yeah, right. That's why we need things like Jitsi. Speaking of bars and meeting people in person, how was the New York Bitcoiners meetup?
Dude, it was so bullish.
Did you give everybody a hug?
I did. There was lots of hugs, and we had beer and we had whiskey, and we had pizza. It was like kind of bit devs, new faces as well. Like I saw a bunch of new faces there, which was good to see. I mean, I hadn't seen these guys in a minute. But yeah, it was super bullish. And to be honest, it was the first time I was like kind of optimistic about the state of New York City. The weather was warm and people were out and about and it was bustling.
I'm heavy in the New Yorker camp right now. heavy. I don't know if I could ever go back.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair enough. I mean, I think, I don't plan on staying in the city either. But that's also part of where I am in life right now. But it did feel, it felt more like the New York we left than it has since we left. Let me
All
put it
right.
that way.
I can get down with that. Get down with that. That's good to see. I hope everybody in New York is doing well. I miss you guys. Even though I'm a New Yorker now, I do miss the people that I knew and developed relationships with in the city. No, of course I'll be back to visit, but yeah, we got a bullish list here, and I gotta rag on you for a little bit. Literally, the first thing we have on the list is behind like a huge paywall. Like I can't even read the article, and I'm not buying.
Yeah, but you don't need to read. Everything's in the headline.
I know I'm not buying a subscription to the Miami Herald. I know you're very
Dying
Bitcoin forward.
business.
FTX is negotiating naming rights to the Miami Heat arena. So we're at this part of the cycle. We had
I don't know.
We had
We've
the
never
Doge,
been at this part of the cycle before.
we had
This
the
is
Doge
early.
NASCAR car. We had the Bitcoin Bowl. This is like in line with that. Definitely to another degree, a higher degree, naming a whole stadium for at least a year. I imagine it's a multi-year contract.
It used to be American Airlines. I don't think. I guess the corporatism of selling out the names of our stadiums is relatively recent, right? Because I don't feel like you don't see them change that often.
No, I feel like Philadelphia. It was depending like so it went like from the first Union Center to Wachovia to Wells Fargo. So as those banks consolidated,
But they like bought the bank and then they
just
got the naming
changed the
rights.
name of the bank.
Mhm.
Lincoln Financial Center. Yeah, I think that like the big like first like naming bid was the Arizona Cardinals newest stadium, if I remember correctly.
That's the first corporate stadium you said?
I mean, that's the first stadium I remember in which there being like a big conversation around the naming rights and a bidding war for it.
Yeah, it's a relatively I feel like it's a relatively new phenomenon. I know in New York, like we used to take a lot of pride that none of our stadiums were sold their names. Because it's like, I don't know. Like I feel like especially when your franchise is worth so much, it's kind of it's a really cheap thing. It cheapens your audience.
Yeah, it's a sellout. And
By
especially
naming the arena. But like we had, the Giants for the longest time wasn't a sponsored arena, and then they sold, and Shea Stadium wasn't for the longest time. Our Madison Square Garden still isn't, and Yankee Stadium still isn't. Like imagine if they called Yankee Stadium like Morgan Stanley Field.
ew. Yeah, what is Meadowlands and now what? MetLife?
Yeah, it's fucking horrible. They got like fucking every time I like go to a game, I think of like Snoopy.
Right. Yeah, we had it's interesting. It's Lincoln Financial Field for the Eagles. They just call it the Link, but before that it was just Veteran Stadium. And then they knocked that down, and when they built the Link, it's always been Lincoln Financial Stadium or the Link. So if they ever get a new sponsor, it's gonna be hard not to call it the Link.
But anyway, it'd be
Talking
pretty
about sports
cool.
on a Bitcoin podcast.
I'm hoping, and I'm not going to hold my breath, but I'm hoping that if FTX does get it, they do it right and they put Bitcoin front and center. One can only hope. We'll see.
It's gonna be Uniswap. There's gonna
Right.
it's just gonna be like a fucking Uniswap unicorn shitting out a rainbow.
Or they'll be like advertising their like 3x long shit token that gets you exposure to shit coins.
Yeah. Or like their hash rate token, which doesn't make a lot of sense to me. We'll see though. Speaking of hash rate, miner revenue hit an all-time high priced in cuckbucks this week. $52.3 million a day is the new miner USD revenue all-time high, which was hit earlier this week. It's interesting because not as many Bitcoin are being produced as there were this time last year and the time before that. And even at the last all-time high, there's significantly less Bitcoin being produced per block. So the mining death spiral, will Bitcoin be able to survive on a fee market? Number keeps going up. Things are looking good.
Yeah, our boy Checkmate over from Glassnode put a chart together of it. It's pretty. It really hits you like a. I assume it hits people like a bag of bricks that don't realize, like it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful how number go up works into it. How we actually, the amount of Bitcoin subsidy is going down, but its purchasing power is at an all-time high. Is like the craziest adoption hack. And it's so interesting because you have these people who, well, first of all, I think it's important for the new freaks to realize 2 years ago, we literally had people that were saying that fees were too low and they were going to stay too low and miners weren't going to be able to secure the network, which seems like crazy to think about now when we're dealing with a mempool that hasn't cleared since the beginning of the year. And then the second thing that's interesting is like you have all these like highly technical people that think the fact that every 4 years the subsidy just cuts in half is like too abrupt. They think like if you just think from like a code first perspective, you kind of end up in a situation like Decred has, where they do like a perfect curve every day. The reward cuts, because that's the way it should have been. The supply cutting in half so abruptly, doing that supply shock every 4 years is inefficient. But meanwhile, it worked out. It's almost like you need that supply shock to really like get people into these like FOMO periods to create this adoption.
Right. I think it's twofold too. That's one of the like probably like a stronger factor. But then like I think I have no problem with the aggressive front loaded supply schedule. I think it was important to get that many Bitcoin into people's hands so that they felt incentivized to like propagate the message and get Bitcoin adopted, right? Like things like faucets, people just giving Bitcoin away, people spending 10,000 Bitcoin on pizzas. Like would that have happened if they weren't so bountiful in the beginning of the protocol? I'm not so sure.
Yeah, I do go back and forth on the front loading thing, but it makes sense to me. Yeah. I mean, like, look, who's to argue? It worked. It is what it is, right?
Yeah.
But it almost doesn't even matter, right? Because it's who posted it? Someone posted. I think it was a tweet, but someone posted like 2011. There was like $25 million worth of Bitcoin left to be mined. And then fast forward to 2021 and it's, billions of dollars of Bitcoin are left to be mined. So it's almost like if you measured in purchasing power, we have more Bitcoin left to be mined than have been mined previously.
Yeah, that's a heady conversation that goes on in some of the mining circles, right? It's like arguably the mad dash for the last million Bitcoin to ever be mined will be more worth it than the first 18 million from that's a mining. Crazy. Yeah, which is an interesting thought experiment to think through. Yeah, as the value keeps going up the way it has been, and it can certainly be true, right? Think about it, like when Bitcoin price is significantly lower than it is today, when it was significantly lower in the early years when mass amounts of Bitcoin were being distributed to the market, like people had to liquidate those to pay their USD and native currency energy cost. Even though there's less Bitcoin, like the significant increase in value makes it so you have to liquidate less. And then you also have the combination of mining being a bit more palatable from an investment standpoint. So you have easier access to capital, and you can play some capital market games to make sure you don't have to liquidate as much Bitcoin anymore. It's a very, very nuanced discussion. Hit your bingo boards.
Marty, we have some freaks in the chat that are asking about, I believe it was for Gamcast. You asked people to make intros and you offered up a reward. Do you want to give the freaks an update on where you stand there?
Yeah, so we need an intro for Gamcast. So I put it out there. a couple days ago. Hard deadline, 5 o'clock Eastern tomorrow. Submissions to come in, and we'll pick the best one. We've gotten 4 submissions so far, all really good. I offered 100,000 sats, and then Austin Storms, our head of product engineering, he quote tweeted me and he upped the ante to 1 million sats if any freaks make an intro to Gamcast that we like that includes Greta screaming "How dare you!" And so he upped the ante. There is a contingent with that ante being upped. You need to include that little sound bite in the intro if you want the 1 million sats. So yeah,
Great.
We'll find out.
So where should they submit that? Do they DM you or something?
Yeah, just DM me, Marty@gam.ai. Everybody already knows this email, so I'm not worried about giving it out.
Sign them up for all the porn subscriptions, freaks.
Please don't do that. Please. please don't do that. Just send an MP3. There's a leader in the clubhouse that I mean, I don't want to dissuade anybody from attempting to get the 1 million sat bounty, but I think there's a strong leader in the clubhouse right now. I'm not going to say who, but there's one that we all like, and he would win the 1 million sat bounty too, if nobody in the field catches up to him. That's some golf terminology there for you freaks. Sticking on mining. Well, I want to stick on the checkmate thing before we get to the next topic.
Boom.
This is really interesting. Like, since the halving, transaction fees have consistently sustained more than 75 to 100 Bitcoin a day, which is pretty surprising.
Just in fees?
Just in fees.
That's pretty high.
That's bullish. Yeah, it's very high.
75 to 100 Bitcoin per day.
Yep.
Which is
per 144
like $5 million. Yeah, it's like $6 million.
Yeah, around there.
Whew. Ain't nothing.
Right? Something. And guess what? The mining race is heating up. The next thing on the list is the fact that Kentucky, the state of Kentucky, the government of Kentucky, has passed a tax break specifically for Bitcoin miners that come and mine Bitcoin within Kentucky's borders. We talked about this last week, briefly touched on it, and at that point it was a bill making its way through the House. It made it through the House, and I believe today or yesterday the governor signed it. Governor Andy Bashir
technically he hasn't signed it yet, but
the Senate voted in favor.
He's going to. It's his party. It's his party anyway. He's gonna sign it.
Yeah, and so again, if you guys were listening last week, you already know this, but if you weren't, just refresh. They're gonna waive sales tax on the electricity used to mine the Bitcoin up to a certain point for miners. So this is a state incentivizing Bitcoin companies, particularly Bitcoin miners, to come in and participate in Kentucky's economy, which is a beautiful thing to see, and is something I wrote about in the newsletter 2 days ago. So I think in the conversation of regulatory crackdowns and like whether or not the U.S. federal government is going to ban Bitcoin or severely limit individual Americans' ability to use it, I think we're overlooking states' rights and the states posturing towards Bitcoin. And I think we're, especially after 2020, when states' rights sort of made a comeback, where you had different states making different policies and how they were going to react to COVID and the lockdowns. And you had some competition there, most notably in Texas, Florida, South Dakota, posturing like, hey, we're going to be freedom forward, and everybody else taking the opposite side of that bet. But you had some optionality there. A lot of people have moved to Florida, Texas. I don't know about South Dakota, but they're certainly leaving California and New York as the taxes stay high and freedom deteriorates. And so I think a lot of people are overlooking the power of the 10th Amendment and the competition we could see among states, particularly if Bitcoin, and even more particularly Bitcoin mining, becomes a significant revenue driver within particular state borders.
The regulatory arbitrage is going to be absolutely gorgeous, whether that's between individual states in America or if that's between states on a global scale. between different countries. I mean, on this topic, we had, this rumored India ban happen, and then at the same time, like a couple days later, we have news coming out through Reuters that there's a Pakistani province that is exploring Bitcoin mining in their hydro mix. So it's going to be pretty crazy to watch this kind of thing play out, right?
Yeah, no, and the Pakistani article from Reuters is really interesting. It was illuminating, and I didn't realize how big the Bitcoin community or how much penetration there was in Pakistan. Like the quote at the end of the Reuters article is really just our government that is not participating right now. People all over Pakistan are already working on this, either mining or trading in cryptocurrencies, and they are earning it in income from it. The person they interviewed said, Bengash, we're hoping to bring this to the government level so things can be controlled and online fraud and other scams can be prevented. So the citizens are already adopting it in Pakistan, apparently, according to this one Pakistani citizen. But that was interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I want to talk. I think the Pakistan news is great. I want to talk more about this Indian news, but before I do, Marty, can you give me permission to screen share?
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, you have to enable it. No, like I would ask your permission if I didn't need it.
I know. Here you go.
But the Indian news, like, it's interesting. First of all, I don't think we dumped on the Indian news. The Indian news happened before, like it happened some hours before the CryptoQuant thing happened, and it was that Gemini. It was that bullshit Gemini, or allegedly bullshit Gemini thing where they said that 18K Bitcoin had been deposited, and then because of that, there was like a cascading. Like a bunch of leverage longs got fucked and we just went down. It just cascaded margin call, which is like people just don't learn, right? It's like stay humble, stack sats. Like, why are you going like insane leverage on Bitcoin? But with the Indian news, it's like interesting because people say, oh, it's a FUD. It's we've heard like India bans Bitcoin, it's just like China bans Bitcoin, yada, yada, yada. I mean, India actually enforced a Bitcoin ban. It's
at the
debatable
exchange
how
level,
effective
right?
it was, but they did, and it was struck down as unconstitutional. And now they're attempting to do it through a different path. So this idea that like it's bullshit is probably incredibly misguided. Like there's going to be more and more restrictions on Bitcoin in India, and it is what it is. Like we should expect authoritarian governments to restrict usage to freedom money.
Yeah. I mean, in India, particularly, Modi wants to implement like the wow, that's a crazy arb. He wants to implement for those listening at home, Matt just put the BISC price of Bitcoin up against
you have Coinbase Pro on top, and then you have BISC below.
Yeah. But yeah, Modi wants to implement like this draconian, like surveilled digital monetary system. I mean, he started that a few years ago or a couple of years ago when they started banning large denominations of cash, and move towards this. So yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if they get pretty harsh around this. And again, like Matt mentioned, they had an exchange ban for quite some time. Finally got uplifted last year, but it seems like they're coming back to limit it again. So shout out to our Indian freaks out there who may be listening. It's a shame. It's a shame what your government's doing to you and preventing you from accessing this freedom technology. But keep trucking, keep fighting.
It's 1.3 billion people. They're neck and neck with China. China's technically more populous. We have 350 million people. Someone said like 40% of the Indian population does not have toilets. There's more people in India without toilets than live in America. Significantly more.
That's insane. Wow. That's an insane stat.
Right? Oh my God, man.
Wow.
So, we should watch those developments closely, and we should do everything in our power to make it easier for people in adversarial environments to use Bitcoin. There's this idea that permeates through Bitcoin's technical community that we just have the liberty of waiting for things forever. And that's fine. Like if you can wait for Bitcoin privacy, if you can wait for using Bitcoin privately in a more easy and, you know, less way to shoot yourself in the fucking foot, then wait. But there's a ton of people that can't wait. And like we need them, they need to have tools now. They have to have tools today. And there needs to be people talking about these tools, and there needs to be people building these tools, and there needs to be people using these tools. And this idea that we can just wait forever is fucking misguided.
Yeah. But it's also like necessity breeds innovation, right? Like if
100%.
you think these tools will get expedited, once it's like, all right, now it's actually pretty pressing. We should move our focus on this more intently.
Well, I mean, we have a government of we have the two most populous governments, you know, the two most populous countries, governments making hard moves at stopping their citizens from freely using Bitcoin. So if that's not necessity, then, you know, I don't know what is. That's 3 billion people. That's half the fucking world, almost.
Right. Solid portion of it. Damn. Well, you need to identify a problem first in order to fix it. That's what we're trying to do here at RHR, is identify where we believe these problems are and what we believe the solutions are, so that we can get some support behind building solutions to these. This is what we aim to do with this podcast. And again, like while we're just on the topic of jurisdictional arbitrage and bringing it back to the States here, again, it's something I really think people in America are discount. Like I think the States moves to make Bitcoin policies, whether that be restrictive like New York State or very open arms like Wyoming and Florida, Miami particularly, Kentucky now added to that list. Similar bill going through the legislator in North Dakota we mentioned last week. I haven't had an update on that recently, but I should look into that after this rip. It's going to heat up, and I think it's making me bullish, especially when you consider the amount of stranded energy resources a lot of these states have, and how conservative a lot of the states with the energy resources are, and how scrappy they are. If especially with this federal ban on fracking on federal land, a lot of these states that have been pushed into a corner, particularly Wyoming, New Mexico, and you can throw Colorado doesn't really care, but like Wyoming specifically and New Mexico right behind them, like they need to get creative because a lot of their economy, particularly Wyoming, is driven by oil revenues, and so oil and gas revenues, and so they're going to need to get really creative to help replenish those state funds that are now being decimated because they're not able to bring oil and gas to market like they were in the past. Bitcoin does fix that for them, and if it does begin providing a lot of revenue that funds things like education, healthcare, and infrastructure build outs in the state, it's going to be hard for the federal government to tell Wyoming that they can't mine Bitcoin, or that Wyoming citizens, Wyomingians can't use Bitcoin. So yeah, that it's coming. Will the 10th Amendment be brought to the fore? Will states start asserting their rights against the federal government? We'll see. That's part of the beauty of the United States, at least in its initial construction, a republic, a union of sovereign states.
It definitely does feel like states' rights are. I feel like a curtain has been pulled on the federal government, and people are starting to wake up, and states are flexing themselves more. You know, the recent crisis, really, the recent coronavirus and response to corona really, I think, elevated it and sped up the process, right? And we're seeing this happen. And just on the energy side, right? I mean, we now have a government that is historically, the party has historically, at least over the last 2 decades, been anti-pipeline and anti-energy expansion, right? So this idea that states can harness whatever resources they have without having to worry about crossing state lines and getting all regulatory approval and all this different stuff can be extremely, extremely advantageous for them, right?
Yeah. Yes. And again, freaks, I highly recommend you go listen to the interview I did with Alex Epstein earlier this week. And if anything, just to understand the trade-offs that come with these policies and the attempt to force renewables on the market. Does it really solve the problem? Does it really produce enough energy? Does it push the externalities just outside the border and increase emissions in places like China? I think he makes a good argument that yes, like there's a lot of trade-offs that probably aren't worth it. And there's ways we can be more efficient. Bitcoin helps us be more efficient with this stuff. Yeah, Jim Cramer recommending that Exxon use their flare gas to mine Bitcoin. Shout out to Pomp for incepting that in his brain.
Well, no, and then he asked the Exxon spokesperson or whatever if they were planning on doing it, and she said they were considering it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's what I
Yeah.
love is like all of these reporters, all these anchors and shit. They won't let people come on their shows anymore without asking them the Bitcoin question. You know, she had no intention of mentioning it, and then he put her on the fucking spot, and here we are. There was like 50 articles written about it after the fact.
It's happening, freaks. It's happening. And yeah, like the bullish news just keeps rolling. JP Morgan came out with an interesting data point in one of their, I guess it was a research report. And this is good for the small guy, good for the common man, good for the freak out there listening to this podcast.
The humble sat stacker.
The humble sat stacker out there. You guys are pulling your weight in terms of flows into Bitcoin. So they have this one particular slide deck that has Bitcoin purchase facilitated by Square, ItBit volume, which is a proxy for PayPal because they're using
really
ItBit. Bitcoin funds flows, which is probably more institutional, CME, which is institutional, and institutional announcements of purchases. And retail is holding their weight. Retail Q3 2020 blowing out institutional by 5 million Bitcoin. Or excuse me, not 5 million Bitcoin. Can't do my math.
That's a lot of Bitcoin, Marty.
50,000 Bitcoin. Institutional took over in Q4 2020, but retail climbed back Q1 2021 so far, beating institutions by almost 10,000, 1,500 BTC.
I mean, they're using rough measurements, right? They're basically looking at futures markets to gauge institutions, and they're including PayPal in the retail side. And on PayPal, even though yes, it is obviously the most retail user, it's like Robinhood. They won't let you take let you take custody. So it's an IOU. And God help the person who decides to have their Bitcoin be in the hands of PayPal, given all the account closures that have happened all throughout the years. So all that said, regardless of how comparable they are, which is pretty cool to see JP Morgan acknowledge that fact. The thing that's hard to quantify that makes the humble sat stackers so fucking powerful is that we continue to educate ourselves and improve our skill set. And we're taking this Bitcoin and we're pulling it off of exchanges and we're keeping it in our own self-custody and we're using our own nodes. That is wholly different than someone like Michael Saylor having, his regulated public company hold 90,000 Bitcoin in some regulated custodian somewhere, right? And the power of that, just pulling that Bitcoin off the market forever. You're just pulling it off, and most of this Bitcoin will never see a regulated exchange ever again. It just gets pulled off. Hopefully it goes through CoinJoin and it goes into self-custody, and that user is going to use their own node, and they're going to be a sovereign Bitcoiner for the rest of their lives, and they're going to pass it down to their kid who's going to be a sovereign Bitcoiner, and that kid is going to pass it down to their kid who's going to be a sovereign Bitcoiner. And that Bitcoin will never hit a regulated exchange again. That reality has not hit these finance bros yet. They do not realize this. It is not something that is priced in yet. And that effect cannot be understated. It's massive.
The liquidity crunch, the SAT squeeze is upon you, banker bros, finance bros. Be aware. Be aware. Be aware. But again, like to go back, I want to throw some shade at PayPal too. I mean, they're one of the reasons that Bitcoin became like famous, and probably one of the reasons that Satoshi left at some point, or people surmise. Actually, we can't actually know why Satoshi left, but he left not too long after WikiLeaks almost turned to Bitcoin because PayPal cut their donations off. So it's like we're coming full circle. Like WikiLeaks had to turn to Bitcoin because they couldn't get money sent to them because PayPal shut down their account, and Bitcoin was the only way. That's the famous Satoshi quote is about the hornet's nest. You've kicked the hornet's nest, and now the horde is upon us, or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, fuck PayPal. It literally blows my mind that we've I guess, to borrow your words, we've reached the point of the cycle where PayPal is holding people's Bitcoin for them.
Right. God, I got to look up the hornet's nest because now it's eating at me. The quote: WikiLeaks has kicked the hornet nest and the swarm is headed toward us. Okay, I just had to make sure I got that. And this was in December 2010. I believe Satoshi left the project in April of 2011. That's when he was last seen. So a little Bitcoin history for you there. And like going back to Robinhood, got to give props where props are due. Even though Robinhood's a shitty app and it's the middle of that Wall Street bet saga, and this is probably virtue signaling, so let's not give them props, but let's just state that their CEO publicly was looking for a developer to make it so they could give their users access to their Bitcoin so they can set them off Robinhood.
I'll believe it when I see it, Marty.
I agree. I
don't even think Robinhood is holding fucking Bitcoin, let alone being able to enable withdrawals.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see like how they're getting that exposure.
It's probably derivative exposure. They probably have like massive CME fucking position to hedge themselves.
Okay. Back to sports. This was actually really cool.
Back to sports with Marty Bent.
Just talking about sat stacking. The Oakland A's are trying to stack as many sats as possible. They're offering full season suites for the 2021 regular season are available for 1 Bitcoin, not a static USD price, just straight up. If you give us a Bitcoin, you'll get a corporate suite for the full season. That's pretty crazy.
That's what people don't realize. The cool part is that it's priced in Bitcoin.
Right.
The question is, though, is like, I mean, we really don't get to see their conviction here unless Bitcoin dumps, because if Bitcoin goes up in value, of course, they're going to maintain that price, right? They're like, right. You know, when they announced it, Bitcoin was at like $54,000. Right now it's at 57. You know, if it goes to like 65, 70, they're going to keep the deal. The real question is, if we fall down to like $35,000, are they going to keep the deal or not? Are they going to honor that price?
If I were the Oakland A's front management, if you're listening right now, I would hold that price because people would be more willing, I would imagine, to part with 1 Bitcoin. You'd probably be able to stack more Bitcoin at that price level.
Yeah, I mean, if the price is higher, right? Like, why would someone pay the Bitcoin when they can just sell it and then use the dollars to buy the suite?
Yeah, like what is the price in US dollars? I guess that's the question that you have to play that ARB game. And
I think you got a slight discount. I think if I recall correctly, it was slightly more expensive in USD at the time of announcement, which was like 54K.
Yeah, here's the announcement from the Oakland A's PR team. We invite our fans to become the first Bitcoin suite holders in sports. We're excited to be one of the handful of teams to accept cryptocurrency for payment and the first to price tickets in crypto instead of US currency. The price of a season suite may fluctuate depending on when it's purchased, which adds to the excitement. Suites are the perfect way for groups who want to safely socially distance themselves from the other disgusting Oakland A fans so they don't get sick. You get your suite, spend your Bitcoin. You dirty Corona-filled baseball lovers. But it's like interesting. And again, this is like another data point in the cultural tipping point, cultural trend, the social movement. Price tickets in Bitcoin instead of U.S. currency.
So do we know how much, does their announcement say how much the suite is in USD?
Not seeing it. I think you may only be able to do it in Bitcoin.
No. There's USD. If you go to the actual website, it shows the USD because I remember I checked. It was like the first thing I checked. I mean, on that topic, right? Like pricing things in Bitcoin. When we talk about the evolution of or the adoption of a new money, you might have heard Bitcoiners in the past say store of value, then medium of exchange. So store of value is number go up, and then medium of exchange is like people actually using it to transfer. And then unit of account, which is, if you're talking about the richest person in the world, you don't say they're worth billions of US dollars. You say they're worth, millions of Bitcoin, or really it's probably going to be billions of sats. But anyway, another thing that got priced in Bitcoin that I don't have on the list was this event out of the Hong Kong Yacht Club, which I had the great pleasure of visiting the Hong Kong Yacht Club when I was there right before all the shit hit the fan, because Hong Kong, the shit hit the fan before COVID happened. And then COVID just was like the nail in the coffin. And they're running a youth regatta, a 3-part regatta where these sailors are sailing in these super expensive, state-of-the-art sailboats, and they're racing for a coin. They're racing for 100 million sats, a single Bitcoin. That's pretty cool. The grand prize, and no one knows what the grand prize worth will be. Like the finals haven't happened yet, so by the time the finals happen in a couple months, the prize could be significantly more purchasing power than it is today.
Yeah, that was I didn't believe it I thought you were like photoshopping a video and just like trying to make a cool meme when you posted the tweet about it, and you were just like making like a boating accident joke, but I had
Race
to go to the
for
website.
the coin.
Right. I was like, holy shit, this is real. Again, another cultural data point is happening, freaks. And again, I don't even know if I mentioned this before we hit record, but right before we hopped on to record RHR today, I did a clubhouse with a buddy of mine who I did a digital design boot camp with in Chicago in like 2013, 2014, 2014. And he's like a big UX designer and like focused on design and product stuff. And just being in that clubhouse with him and a bunch of designers, like the interest around building on Bitcoin from a designer's perspective was really interesting to see. And I think the blank slate nature of building on Bitcoin is starting to really entice the designing community, which is very, very interesting to see. And again, just like from all angles, culturally, interest is rising. You have boat races having Bitcoin prizes, the Oakland A's pricing suites in one Bitcoin. It's happening, freaks. Slowly, like this is like it's like frogs boiling in water, but in a good way, in terms of like Bitcoin slowly matriculating its way through the psyche of the masses. You're just gonna wake up and the frog's gonna be fully boiled, and we're gonna be hyper Bitcoinized. Be like, oh shit, it happened. We're here.
Yeah, I mean, I could smell the frog burning.
Yeah, and again, we've got good people attempting to defend Bitcoin on Capitol Hill, particularly against the FinCEN move to make very stringent KYC AML compliance laws for exchanges and their users. So Coin Center and a bunch of Bitcoiners outside of Coin Center sent enough comments earlier in the year to extend the deadline of commenting so that the people in FinCEN made educated decisions. And Coin Center this week announced that they entered a third comment, just clarifying a few things. Again, just saying how unlawful it would be to force this type of data gathering on exchanges and users, considering the very low amount, the very low threshold of the amount being transacted, which is like $2,000 right now.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciated the heavy wording of this recent Coin Center letter. When my screen is being shared to all the freaks that are watching live, so I can't pull it up.
I've got it
But
right
I think
now.
they straight up called it like, so this proposal was from
Munching
Butts,
butts.
right?
Yeah.
So our previous Treasury Secretary, before we got Yellen, Trump was still president. They tried to rush this through when after the election, when they realized the time was up and they wanted to rush it through. They wanted it to be the last thing. It got halted. The general premise, the TLDR is enhanced KYC. Let's make KYC even more strict than it was before. And the Coin Center guys, they pulled no fucking punches. They called it surveillance, data collection. They hit all the good points that you want them to hit, and they fucking did it hard. So that's what we want to see. We don't want to see, I don't want to see like pussyfooting around here. I think it's important that it's clear that America, the most important thing for American citizens is to not be vulnerable to outside external malicious actors. And these type of surveillance regulations do the exact opposite of that. They make us vulnerable, and they will be exploited.
Yeah, and here's like the money 3 sentences where they really cut to the chase. As we discussed in depth in our comment, currency transaction reports are anything but non-controversial. They are, by definition, automated mass surveillance of innocent transactions. Any transaction over $2,000 that is merely relevant to a possible violation of law or regulation will trigger a suspicious activity report requirement, which already applies to crypto transactions today. Therefore, any CTR report filed without any accompanying suspicious activity report is, by definition, a report about an American resident's entirely innocent and otherwise private financial activities. These reports are a brazen offense to our Fourth Amendment rights against warrantless search and seizure. A warrant, of course, requires specific reasonable suspicion of a crime. So, yeah, it was very strong, potent, and to the point language from the team at Coin Center. And pulling in the Fourth Amendment is actually a very, very good tactic, I think, too. It is unlawful search and seizure.
I don't agree with everything they do. I think their priorities have been a little bit misplaced. They focused a little bit too much on securities regulation, but there comes a time every year where they earn my donation, my annual donation to them, and this letter was that.
Yeah. Shout out to Coin Center. Just focus on getting Bitcoin labeled as free speech. Like, just put all your efforts on that, please.
Yeah, and privacy. I mean, they both things would accomplish a similar goal, right? But I support all of our privacy focused lobbyists, and I think it's the reason we have so little substantive discussion about Bitcoin privacy and internet privacy in general is because so much of this fucking country, so much of our fellow citizens have been conditioned to just believe that privacy is inherently suspicious. And it really should be the exact opposite. Like the privacy is the most American fucking thing ever. And when I say American, I mean from the creation of this country. It's not something that we've embraced recently, that's for sure. And that needs to change. We need to go back to our roots in that regard.
Completely agree. Let's get back to our roots, freaks, especially you American freaks out there. Again, the long dick of the U.S. government, and this time the long dick of the CFTC, the Commodities Futures Trading Commission, specifically, is probing Binance over whether or not U.S. residents traded derivatives on their exchange. To be clear, Binance has not been accused of any wrongdoing. The CFTC is just probing to see whether or not Americans were unlawfully trading derivatives, taking risk in derivatives markets. You can't make trading decisions for yourself. You can't put your capital at risk. You need to make sure the CFTC is there to protect you. And they're gonna shake down Binance and make sure that none of you poor plebs out there were taking risk with your own money and trying to make money from your own money. Okay, they're here to protect you.
So something that we've discussed in the past on this podcast is this idea that the long arm of the U.S. government will make you KYC all your users and collect all this sensitive personal information on all of your users to ensure that no Americans are using the product. And this is what they did to BitMEX, right? They said to BitMEX, IP filtering alone is not enough. You need to KYC everybody. And if you're not KYCing everybody, then there's no way for you to be absolutely sure that no Americans are using your platform. And then you're breaking our laws and we will fucking throw the book at you. And BitMEX actually fought back against that. So there's a lot of people that are equating the two, and I don't think they should be equated. CZ, the CEO and founder of Binance, has already bent the fucking knee to the U.S. government. They're already owned by the U.S. government. He has shotgun KYC people left and right. We've had so many freaks reach out and tell us about this. This is a constant thing. He pretends it's for your own good. And when I say shotgun KYC, what I mean is he holds your funds hostage in an otherwise account that's under 2 Bitcoin on Binance is supposed to be no KYC. That's their official ruling. But after you put money in, he will not let you withdraw unless you upload sensitive personal information. So that's where the difference lies here. That is absolutely abhorrent policy, the shotgun KYC. It's way worse than just regular KYC. Like, be upfront with your users about what they should expect. Do not hold funds hostage. BitMEX, on the other hand, literally had to have one of the 3 co-founders arrested before they implemented KYC. They pushed back until that fucking happened. So it's a completely different situation. Maybe the CFTC does slap him with some fines, makes him, do a little bit more shotgun KYC than he's doing. Maybe remove that account altogether, that 2 Bitcoin little zone he has where he pretends there's no KYC. But don't be mistaken here. Like, Binance is already captured by the U.S. government. They will do anything the U.S. government asks, and that is what it is.
Yeah, completely agree. I don't think CZ has the same character or metal that Arthur Hayes and crew of Sam Reed and Ben. How do you say his last name?
Dello?
Dello. Yes, Ben Dello.
Benjamin Dello.
Speaking of which, we're gonna talk about this BitMEX news for a bit, and then we're gonna get the shout outs. Reminder that we have to read shout outs after this before I forget.
Yeah, I have it in full caps on my scratch pad.
Yeah, so Ben Dello, he got extradited from UK, right? And he went in front of
No one got extradited.
No?
He voluntarily surrendered himself in New York.
Okay.
They gave him $20 million worth of bail, and then he went back to the UK.
Yeah.
And with Arthur, the rumor is that he's going to go back to New York. He negotiated his surrender. He's going to go back to New York next month. He's going to surrender for $10 million bail, and then he's going to return back to Singapore. So we're watching sovereign individuals negotiate with the most powerful country in the world.
I love it. Let's go. I'm on Team BitMEX. I'm sorry. Any of our federal agents are listening to this. I'm sorry. The product was too good. Again, they built a product that allowed people to just take risk. I think people should be allowed to take risk if they want to. If they want to burn sats by trading on high leverage, they should be able to do that. They never touched the US dollar banking system. So to throw all these accusations at them using the Bank Secrecy Act, I don't think Bitcoin falls under the purview of the Bank Secrecy Act if it never touches US dollar rails. So
yeah, and their terms and conditions said no Americans, and they blocked American IP addresses. And if someone like Tone Vase posted screenshots of his referral rewards on Twitter, they would restrict his account. And this idea that they should KYC every single global user just to enforce quite clearly overbearing U.S. regulations is absolutely absurd. So I mean, we'll not that logic, dictates these kind of things anyway.
Not only absurd, it's very un-American, if you ask me. I think we need to.
Wonder, Marty. I wonder how many. I lost my train of thought a little bit there, but and I just remembered. How many FBI agents do you think that we orange pilled and are proper freaks now? Like, do you think we have
Dude,
like 6 or 7 that
I have a
they
story for
assigned to
you.
us, and they just had to keep replacing them because if they spend too much time listening to RHR, they just automatically get orange pilled.
Shout out to Josh. I hope you're listening to this after our
Is
discussion.
this our FBI agent?
He's not an FBI agent. So I was in again, I only go into Clubhouse for very focused discussions these days. And the focused discussion I was in last Thursday while you were meeting up with New York Bitcoiners with the Brains team talking about Bitcoin mining. And we had a gentleman, I believe, I'm sorry if I'm misremembering your name, sir, but it was Josh. And he came up on stage and he was a local law enforcement. I forget exactly what state, but he worked in conjunction with the DEA to help like unwind. Like he worked with an informant for the DEA. That like in the informant in the case, there was a lot of Bitcoin involved, and the informant was teaching him like how they use Bitcoin, like how they coin joined and all that stuff. And he became like infinitely fascinated in this. Like 3 years ago, when this case was going on, they found the criminal. They got his Bitcoin and all that. But again, like local law enforcement working with DEA, he's a freak now. He listens to all the episodes and he loves what we're doing. And he said on stage on Clubhouse, like he has no problem with CoinJoin, and said like other law enforcement agents that he works with probably wouldn't have a problem either. Like as long as you're just using it for privacy, not doing anything illegal.
Well, guys, freaks, you heard it here first. Josh said, random police officer Josh, also a freak, said coin join, completely cool.
I was like, Josh, I'm sorry if I was a bit like abrasive when you first came up. I was like, oh, so you're my DEA agent. He was like, he's like, no, I'm law enforcement working with the DEA agent in that particular case. But no, it was.
Don't worry, Marty. Your DEA agent was also listening to that conversation at the same time.
Good. I hope so. No, but it's a very interesting perspective that maybe we shy away from too much. But it was more bullish than I expected it to be. More accepting of Bitcoin and what we're doing here than I would have expected. It was like a surprise.
I personally have a lot of good friends that work in law enforcement, and I think law enforcement, these police officers are in situations where they have to think for themselves all the fucking time, and they are thrown to the wolves. Like if they don't have, it's very much a personal responsibility profession. So they're predetermined to be Bitcoiners. It's way easier for them to become Bitcoiners than the average, Western individual who has learned that they just should not have any personal responsibility in their day-to-day lives. They just go through their lives blaming everyone else for every bad thing that ever fucking happens, and never say they're wrong, never admit fault, and just let their ego just like dig themselves into this massive fucking hole. With police officers, they have to, law enforcement, they have to fucking deal on day to day. They have to deal with really significant shit.
Agreed. No, I know it's a bad rap. I mean, it's such like everything, a nuanced conversation. And that's what actually one thing Josh said on stage too. Is like at the end of the day, like most police officers get into the line of business, law enforcement, because they believe in protecting people and the validity of the laws. So, I mean, we could debate the validity. We can debate the validity of some laws in some states, but the gist of what I'm trying to get at here is that they're good people who just want to protect people.
I mean, I guess we should shy away from gross generalizations.
Yeah,
but
I mean, there's very shitty cops out there as well.
Look, I love my boys that are cops, but probably the overwhelming majority of them became cops for the power trip. But
that's true.
It is that is, power trip is a personal responsibility type of thing.
With great power comes great responsibility. I think that's the quote, actually. Shout outs before I forget. First shout out. I forgot to read this last week. There's a website, Bitcoin, and I checked. It's not an ad. There's no way to make money. I'm pretty sure. But I think it's a pretty good idea. So it's called Bitcoin at Berkshire.com. The age of a new monetary asset ascending is upon us. Friday, April 30th, and Saturday, May 1st, 2021. Bitcoin at Berkshire is hosting the first annual Bitcoin only event in conjunction with Berkshire Hathaway's annual shareholder meeting. This is a free 2-day virtual event with the most brilliant minds in the Bitcoin only space. Our goal is to continue the conversation of how Berkshire Hathaway, its subsidiaries, and shareholders alike can utilize this monetary tool, improving underlying business operations and strengthening the balance sheet for several hundred years to come. So,
I mean, you just advertised a virtual conference.
Free. It's free.
So is that where we draw the line? If it was a, like, where do we draw the line between a shout out versus an ad? If they charge for the conference, then they have to get a proper ad spot in the beginning, or
you know what, Bitcoin at Berkshire, you got away with this one. Okay. I think it's nuanced. I think it's a play it by ear, take them as they come.
Look, it sounds like it's run by a freak. So cheers to the freaks out there. Love all of your initiative. Fuck yes. Let's go.
Bitcoin at Berkshire. What's the 18th? Last week was the 11th. This one came in on the 12th. There's two that I think somebody paid twice. I think they may have thought it didn't go through first time, but doesn't have anything to do with this one. I like this one too.
Marty, I'm being told in the chat that Berkshire at Hathaway is no longer free and they're charging money for it now.
God damn it, Berkshire. Are they really?
Yeah.
God, I'm about to read. I'm about to read this one too. No, it's
just for the record, freaks. If you couldn't tell, from over 2 years of joining us every week, I get surprised by the shout outs as you get surprised at the same time. Marty does not tell me ahead of time about the shout outs. Oh, no, the guy who runs it is just trolling us in the live chat, and he said he's not charging. So we know it is run by a freak, because only a freak would troll us live on the chat.
Thank you, freak. All right, this is very similar. Since I read that one, I feel like I have to read this one. Cue the pump, freaks. Aussie Bitcoiners are off to the first regional Bitcoin Bush Bash of 2021 in Beechworth, Victoria. This weekend, a continuation of low-key regional meetups where we spend a weekend sharing ideas, learning, building bonds, the infinitely yielding type of bonds, eating steaks and talking about the corn. Presentations and discussion panels this weekend include Bitcoin security, Lightning, living off Bitcoin, compliance, Bitcoin DeFi, and setting up your own Bitcoin satellite. An endless stream of stories, advice, learning, and help. When our great overlords allow international visitors again, we hope some of you European and North American pigeons will make it over. Is that what you think of us, Aussie freaks? We're just pigeons? We had a very owl type vibe to us.
Well, no, this is what Marty's owl always talks about. He's always using pigeons as an insult.
Is Marty's owl an Australian?
So it's an in-group signaling mechanism.
Okay, I like this. Okay. All right, I'm a pigeon. Okay,
we're not pigeons. We're owls. But continue.
2 more Bitcoin bashes in the pipeline this year for July and November. Follow at Bitcoin Bush Bash or take a gander at bitcoinbushbash.info. Marty, please break your winning streak of audio fuck ups. I'm hoping I'm doing that right now for you.
We literally had one today. Okay.
And Matt, it was very temporary. Matt, all caps here. Remain humble despite the unending stream of winning. Thanks for all you two do. Love, Aussie freaks. As he pops the bottle. Love you, Aussie freaks. I hope you guys enjoy it.
I'm sorry.
I think this actually may have happened last week.
Oh, so we were late?
I mean, the bash, this was sent last Friday. So
I don't think it happened. I mean, Catan didn't tell me about it.
The bash may have already happened. Hopefully it's this week. Maybe they bought it last Friday, knowing we'd read it today.
Yeah, I don't think it. I doubt it happened yet. I think we would have known it happened because Catan would have posted about it. Wizard of Oz would have posted about it. Stefan would have posted about it. The Aussies. They all our Aussie boys would have posted about it.
Aussie. Yeah, you guys are in a prison over there. I feel bad.
It's still a strong citadel, though.
I mean, it is an island in the middle of the Pacific, so.
I've told all our Aussie boys that I'm happy to employ them for a work visa if they want to come over to the free states.
Yeah, we need some work done. We need to Bitcoinize this whole operation. So, and we need you on site in my mother-in-law's house. Hello, Marty and Matt. This is an interesting one. I remember reading this earlier this week. I'm like, and it's very similar to the next one. It'd be very interesting if it's coming from two separate people.
How many
at
do
the
we
same
have?
time.
We have 4.
We have 2 more left. We got 3 or 4. Yeah.
You
4.
read too, Marty. Your math is horrible.
I fell down the stairs, dude. I fell down the stairs. My stair fall was pretty bad too. Still recovering. My back is fucked. Hello, Marty and Matt. Thank you for all that you do. Seriously, thank you. I confess that I still own quite a bit of some shit coins: Ethereum, Litecoin, Cardano, Decred, Monero, and Bitcoin Cash.
What the fuck are you doing, freak?
Here we go. All right, Matt. This is why you reached out to us. I listen to Bitcoin maximalist, quote unquote, and it makes sense that I should dump these altcoins for BTC. Yet, whenever I sit down to simplify my portfolio and put it all into Bitcoin, I always bail and put it off for another day. I always wonder if, for some unforeseen quote unquote use case, could eventually make one of these altcoins become something legitimate. I don't know why I can't confidently and joyfully just let them go. I just somehow need an extra little push. Are you able to provide this little push? I know you can't give financial advice, but I just know you guys can throw a few words together that will cause me to remove all doubt if you were so willing. My head does not work best when left alone. Thank you again. And my head does not work best after falling down a flight of stairs, but I think it works good enough to give you the advice to just dump them. Here's the push. I'm going to shove you off the fucking shitcoin cavern, dump it into Bitcoin, and forget about it.
Don't shove it. Just fucking do it, freak. You'll feel way better.
Less stress. And like, oh, what if some unforeseen use case of one of these shitcoins pops up that makes it like flipping Bitcoin? Like, it's not going to happen. I mean, let's go through them. Ethereum objectively failed, needs to transition to ETH 2.0. Like crumbling right now. The war between the miners and the developers is one of the funniest things I've ever seen. Litecoin, do I even have to say anything? Cardano, just look at Charles Hawkinson. Look at that scammer. Look at the way he treats himself. He's like the poster boy of that. Decred, governance is an inherent attack vector. They've literally built it into their protocol. Monero can't scale. You never know if there's inflation bugs. Like, there could be inflation bugs. I think it's proven in the past that there have been inflation bugs, and they're always fucking with the mining algorithm. And I think Bitcoin's privacy assurances are going to be better over time. The way I went to, because I wanted to start with like Bitcoin's privacy assurances are getting better, but you already yelled at people for saying that earlier in the episode.
I never talk about Bitcoin privacy. Bitcoin privacy is great. No one has to ever concern themselves with it. We shouldn't talk about it, because if we talked about it, that'd be likely illegal. And you should just assume that other people are working on it. And we have all these magic words that are going to make it better in the future. So magic.
Abracadabra. Bitcoin Cash. I mean, Bitcoin Cash. Come on, dude.
What a fucking joke, man.
What are you doing?
Get your shit together. And fucking just do it, man. Or don't. Either way, your portfolio is going to be 99% Bitcoin. It's either going to be less Bitcoin or more Bitcoin. That's what it comes down to. Because if you don't fucking do it, it's all going to trend to zero eventually anyway. So that's up to you, bro. You don't look at everything Marty said is fine and dandy, but go to TradingView and look at the charts.
Run the numbers.
Look at the 5-year charts of every single coin you hold against Bitcoin. Use Bitcoin as the denominator. Price your life in sats, and then go do it with the whole S&P 500, and then tell me that you can outperform staying humble and stacking sats. And if you say yes, good fucking luck. You're probably full of shit.
Most definitely bullshit. I'm pretty sure this dude just didn't think the first transaction went through and redid it with another transaction. So he paid for 2 shout outs technically, so I have to read both of them. This is the way it works.
It's true. It's technically, it's in our terms and conditions.
It is. I'm still sitting on a pile of shit coins. It's funny how he reworded it too. I'm still sitting on a pile of quote unquote shit coins. Ethereum, Cardano, Litecoin, Decred, Monero. I know I should trade them for Bitcoin, but whenever I sit down to do so, I always bail and put it off for another day. I'm always thinking, quote unquote, what if? I need a nudge. I know you don't give financial advice, but are you willing to drop a quick nugget of wisdom? I'm open to being shamed or scolded. I just want to be able to confidently and gleefully let go of these coins. Any input is appreciated. Thank you for TFTC and all you do. Seriously. Yeah, I'm just going to co-sign what we just said.
Wait,
previously.
can we give this new freak different advice? You
Yeah,
should
go
just
for
hold your shit coins, just hold them. It's gonna outperform Bitcoin.
it. Just hold on. Yeah, just hold on. Whatever.
I love it that he submitted it twice, but yes, we had to give him $100 worth of advice. One thing I did notice on the second read, I mean, when did we say we don't give financial advice? I thought this whole operation is one big financial advice. You know, Bitcoiners are the only ones who don't have to lie about it being financial advice because Bitcoin's not a security. So we're allowed to talk about it without violating securities regulations. Everyone else talking about shit coins and talking about Tesla and talking about all this shit, they can't do that. They have to do that big disclaimer. That's why Pomp has a big disclaimer in the beginning, is because it's a shitcoin podcast.
Hey, Pomp's been helping us spin the narrative. Let's not dump on him too hard, okay? Love you, Pomp. No, but I agree. Yeah, buy Bitcoin. I would literally say it in the ad read, like stack sats, stay humble, stack sats. The stack sats part of stay humble literally means buy Bitcoin.
I guess when I say that every company in the S&P 500 will trend to zero in Bitcoin, that is not financial advice. But when I say Bitcoin's designed to pump forever, that is financial advice.
No, I think that's good, sound financial advice. The former there, because you're just saying buy Bitcoin. You're not saying short a stock. You're saying buy Bitcoin. Those aren't going to appreciate as fast as Bitcoin. Maybe that is advice.
No, I'm being clever. It's bullshit. Yeah, obviously. I'm saying the same thing. It's the same thing, Marty. I'm saying the same fucking thing in two different ways of saying it.
Yeah. Well, this freak said the same thing in two different ways of saying it in the shout out.
No, he said it in the same exact way.
The second time, it wasn't afraid to be scolded. So
was it slightly different? He like edited it in between?
Yeah, it was completely different.
I love it.
It's like he forgot what he wrote. Or she. Could be a she.
Yeah, because it doesn't tell you what you wrote. Like once you submit, it goes.
Yeah. We run
There's no confirmation. There should be like some kind of.
Yeah, we just wait for 6 confirmations, then we read it. So if you send a low fee and you're confident that will get included in a block, like you can know that it went through.
And just keep in mind that if you try and game the system, Matt will shit on you live on air because Marty will read it anyway.
That is the RHR difference, freaks. We transition away from shout outs to the software update section of the podcast. This is a big one. Block Clock Mini got a new firmware release. Anybody running a Block Clock Mini out there? Download the firmware. I think it fixed some stuff with the Open Dime reader. What else did it do? Did it add a digit? I saw you ask for Dolpho that earlier.
No, he didn't add a digit. I don't know what he's going to do about that. I mean, I do know. I mean, everyone should just use sats per dollar and the number go down and we're good.
Yeah. Reason I got confused here is because you put the cold card version update with the Block Clock Mini announcement and the Block Clock Mini announcement with the cold card version update. So if you're running cold card version 4.0.0 has been released, some major internal improvements. Is this like libsec P256K1 is now not in beta anymore?
Yeah. I was going to make a tweet where I pretended I lost all my Bitcoin because I used the cold card beta, and it would have went over so many people's heads. There would have been like articles about it and stuff like, so I just didn't make the joke.
Are you trying to fan the flame wars?
I mean, this is just like where we are, right? This is like where we are in Bitcoin land. I guess it's like I actually question the repercussions of the shit posts now.
Yeah.
But this is a massive update. To be clear, this is fucking huge. It's the first hardware wallet that uses
Bitcoin Core's libsec P256K1.
The same cryptography library that Bitcoin Core uses, which is massive. That's a big thing.
Yeah. secure cold card cloning, reproducible builds. That's pretty big as well. Being able to reproduce the builds from source. It's a good way to get certainty that you're running the right code and to verify. Hardware wallet integration version 2.0.0. Andrew Chow's been working on this. That's been added. They added Bitbox 2 multi-sig signing, support for Python 3.9, for documenting some stuff. Shout out to Andrew Chow and everybody contributing to that, trying to make hardware wallets interaction with core standard to make it easier and create less chances of there being some fuck ups on the user side by creating a standardization process. So
you called it hardware. You said HWI. You said the I is integration, isn't it? Interface.
Interface, yes. Thanks for keeping me on my toes. Blaming the stairs on that one as well. Nodl Dojo version 0.1.2c has been released. You don't have a link to that.
He doesn't provide links, but if you own a Nodl Dojo, it just shows up with the change log, and you can press upgrade if you want, and it has a link in there. Yeah, I mean, it's a big upgrade. It brought everything up to recent. Now all the internal packages that Keto Miner has on Nodl got updated. So Whirlpool got updated, RTL got updated, LND got updated, and Dojo got updated. And the big thing with RTL is it added loop and it added the fee bump support to do replace by fee. So that this was a big upgrade. It was good to see. The Nodl Dojo continues to be a fucking beast of a node. I fucking love it. It was a very good. I'm very happy with my purchase. I'm still very happy with my purchase. I feel very secure in using it. And just as far as turnkey nodes go, it is definitely on the premium side, no fucking doubt. But you get that hands-on Keto Miner French touch to it, and it's hard to price that.
You clawed it back from the robber?
Oh no, the robbers stole the Nodl, the original Nodl. I personally own a Nodl Dojo. The thief in 2019 stole the official Tales from the Crypt Lightning node and is still operating it with nice low fees, Tor only. It's amazing. It's amazing that thief is just such a dedicated freak. Like even the people who steal from us are just so aligned with the cause. It's great to see.
Giving back to the network. You love to see it. You hate to see
it. I heard recently the thief had to change the Nodl OG to from 500 gig SSD to 1 terabyte SSD. And Keto Miner's video that showed how to do it was just really very useful for him.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear it. I'm glad to hear that there's some resources out there so that he can keep this node up and running and providing liquidity to the Lightning Network. It's a beautiful thing to see. You don't like to see people engage in thievery, but maybe he's trying to atone for his sins by running a good node. So before we move on to the next, shout out to the Nodl team, not only for the Nodl Dojo and everything they do, but I mean, they were Escuedo specifically very pivotal in getting us on board in the Sphinx chat and like literally probing me and Matt to pay attention to it and getting us onboarded on that, the podcast specifically, or late summer, early fall last year. And I just want to thank him specifically for pushing me down this rabbit hole, because I think it's going to be a very important one to keep falling down moving forward. And then on top of that, they're providing cloud services for Sphinx users as well.
Yeah, they provide the whole backend. The whole backend, if you're not running your own node, you're not using your own node, is not a cloud. So technically, you're using your own node on their servers.
Yes,
which is a trade-off balance.
You can still use your own node, but if you don't have your node ready to go, you can do an auto cloud node.
Yep.
Yeah. Shout out to Keto and Escuedo. You guys are fucking crushing it. Rude Fox Barrow version 0.1.1. It's a pretty big upgrade as well, correct?
The big thing here is added support for a regular die. So like you can just use a D6, which is just a traditional dice.
You don't need the casino quality.
Oh no, casino quality. There's obviously casino quality is D6 casino quality.
Oh,
I I have all the Dungeons and Dragons freaks are shaking their head at you, Marty. He used like a D20, I think, originally. So you needed the special dice that was like 20 sided, and now you can use a D6, which is the normal dice. And in Dungeons and Dragons, there's like 6 different dice or something like that.
okay. All right. Good to know.
It's the number of sides on the dice. Does that make sense? Like D6 is a 6-sided dice. It's your usual dice. You go to the casino, they roll the dice. It could be 1 through 6, right?
Oh, that's how it works.
That's a D6, right? And then so you have like
I
D4s,
get it. I
you have
get it. I get it.
D10s, you have D20s.
Yeah.
No, but this is like a thing. The freaks don't realize this.
I didn't realize that until you just. I never knew it was called D6. What are the FUD dice? What are they? D what?
The FUD dice are
D12?
are D infinite.
Right. Logically. Or theoretically. Anthony Towns. I didn't read this. You're gonna have to run with this one. I read the one after this, but not this
It
one.
was all right.
What do you think? Like, I'm
I
reading.
love Anthony. I love Anthony, and I think look, you know, this is what's nice about Bitcoin governance, right? Is like I have Ryan Gentry's blog post on Bitcoin governance. I have Anthony Towns' blog post on Bitcoin governance. We recently had the IRC chat about the Taproot activation using speedy trial. This idea of a 3-month signaling period. And if miners just go with it, then we're good and we don't have to fucking deal with any kind of complication. All of these things, they all meld together, right? And it's very important, I think, that every time we hit like a pivotal Bitcoin upgrade point, and I know we talk about ossification a lot on this podcast, this idea that Bitcoin will hit a point where like basically no changes will go forward unless they're like typo fixes. But I think it's important that every time we have like any kind of major soft fork, that we reevaluate for the newcomers, especially we have all these new freaks here on how Bitcoin governance works, right? And we all have different opinions on how it works. You know, Anthony Towns kind of wanted to push back on the idea of UASF, user activated soft fork, the influence that it had, and that it was like a special situation that it had. I think Ryan really hit the nail on the head. And I mean, look, you don't have to agree with me. I want you to do all your research. I expect the freaks to go out, do all their research. I've been wrong plenty of times, and if I'm wrong, I'll admit I'm wrong. When it's obvious that I'm fucking wrong, I will admit it. A lot of people won't in this space. So I don't want you to just blindly trust me, but my take on Bitcoin governance is similar to Ryan's take, more similar to Ryan's take than Anthony's take, and we have both linked in the show notes. In that, you know, you have 3 stakeholders. You have 3 sets of stakeholders.
Well, before you go forward,
You have devs.
Before you go forward,
You have miner. Go on.
it's Ryan Gentry and Buck Purley. It's not just Ryan. It's 2 people.
Right, but Ryan. Okay, apologies. Ryan posted on his blog. Both from the Austin Citadel. So shout out to both of them. This idea that you have 3 stakeholders, right? And you have this idea of you have developers, you have miners, and then you have users that are neither of those 2. And all 3 sets basically have veto power, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's a Mexican standoff, right?
Yeah, it's this idea that it's just really hard to change. The one constant that we all should agree on is that Bitcoin is insanely difficult to change. So any change that happens needs to be of the utmost necessity. It has to be as efficient as possible. Otherwise, that change will not happen. Yes. Is my take, and I think that lines up with Gentry and Bucks.
I agree. And we talked about this weeks ago. and when you convince me like lot equals false, if we go down that lot versus true versus lot versus false path, makes the most sense. And that's what Ryan and Buck, that's the conclusion that they came to as well. But it was interesting reading that. I wrote about it last Friday. It was that, I mean, it's not, they didn't write that in vain, but it seems like the speedy trial activation is gaining more traction now.
Well,
At least it's a
speedy
first
trial is
attempt.
lot equals false with a 3-month timeline.
Okay.
That's what it is. They don't want to say it, but it's the same thing. It's this idea that you will let the miner signal, and if they just signal over 90% in the next 3 months, then we don't have to deal with anything else. And then like let's make that our first step for every soft fork going forward. You just provide the miners this option if they want to hit 90%. They hit 90%. If you're an economic full node and you disagree with it, then you just don't run the new software. So you still have your veto power. Your veto power isn't removed from the equation. But at the same time, you have the ability that, a large percent of the network is in consensus in terms of any kind of movement.
Yeah. Yes. Great piece. Go check it out. They tie in the Federalist Papers throughout the piece, and how the founding fathers of the United States thought about setting up the republic, and how the checks and balances between the stakeholders should work in the United States. It's eerily similar conversations were going on back then, that are going on now. Why are you hiding yourself? Somebody's probably coming in.
No one else can see that except for you, Marty.
Are you sure?
Yep.
So were you just like palming my face?
Yep.
Okay.
I was doing something over here, but now that you called out my spot,
I'm sorry. This seems like a pretty massive fuck up or flaw in SMS. You need like, so we talk about sim swaps a lot in this podcast throughout the history. It's like a huge attack vector. People who know, or criminals that know certain individuals own cryptocurrency and are likely to keep it on exchange will go to a mobile phone provider, pretend to be that person that they're attacking, and get a new sim card to swap out, and then they'll go to the exchange and say, hey, I need to reset my password, and they get SMS two-factor authentication or authorization. God, I'm messing up all the acronyms today. They get 2FA using the cell phone number, and then they're able to get access to the exchange account and drain it of all the Bitcoin. It's becoming apparent. This article in Vice is saying that like there's a way to hack SMS without even getting SIM swapped. What the hell's going on here, dude?
First of all, hilarious. You corrected yourself. You were correct the first time. It's 2-factor authentication. Yeah, I mean, it's a perfect example of a fuck up that involves a centralized system. And the centralized system is our SMS networks, our phone networks, this idea that the mobile providers are trusted third parties and we can rely on them to secure ourselves. They had a backdoor, and they still have this backdoor that's set up for the corporates to basically move numbers, move the authorization of who sends a text from different people. And the idea was so that they could spam us with a bunch of mass marketing. So if you hire one of these marketing companies, you can give them very limited information to verify this is my phone number. And then you can use that mass marketing company to basically exploit a large amount of individuals at the same time. And if you know they're a Bitcoiner and you know their phone number, then obviously they're an even easier target. And this is why exchanges, any kind of service really shouldn't rely on SMS being secure, because it's not. Rely on phone numbers as an authentication mechanism. They should not do that. And they should at the very least, allow people to turn off that capability. There's a large amount of services, unfortunately, and a lot of them being banks, which is even worse, that don't even allow you to turn it off. Like it'll always be able to use a phone number. And the single easiest way for you to figure this out is pretend you forgot your password, right? And try and sign into your service only knowing your phone number. Any service that is important, you should go and you should try and sign in. Go through the forget password button, click the forget password, go through the fucking hoops, and try and access it with just your phone number. If you can't access it with just your phone number, you should be good. Then I guess before you even do this, go back to your email address that most people, let's be honest, are using a single email. You really should be having multiple segregated email addresses. But let's say you're just using a single email, like the majority of people. It's your master email, it's your main one. A lot of people, it's for Gmail. Go try and access that with just your cell phone. If you can access that with just your cell phone number, go through the forget password stuff and access it with just your cell phone number, then all of a sudden, any account that's also linked to that email is also vulnerable. So you want to make sure you close those holes. And literally the only way you can do that is if you go and practice personal responsibility and go check everything. Unfortunately, hopefully in the future, they just remove this horribly insecure authentication method.
Yeah. Get your coins off exchanges. Don't use SMS. Trying to use two-factor authentication. Authenticate. God damn it. Goddamn head. 2FA. And maybe use a YubiKey if you can, where you can. Yeah. Big attack vector. Hopefully we figure it out. What should we end it on here? Matt, sorry, I had to send a tweet to dunk on the Ethereum nerds. Somebody highlighted the fact that they're
You're dunking on someone live?
I'm trying to. We'll see if it works out. I think it's funny because the ETH guys are trying
to. We had one more news story.
I know. Let's divert here for a second. Like the ultrasound money narrative, because they're gonna like kill fees and burn fees. It's more sound than Bitcoin. Is this true? Is Ethereum ultrasound money in your opinion?
No, I mean, it's fucking ridiculous. God forbid they have their own memes instead of fucking trying to take all of our memes. And I mean, I know it's a very sensitive topic in America, but there's like some kind of ultrasound ETH abortion joke in there somewhere, and I'm not going to make the joke.
Well, I mine was a little bit more PC.
It's ultrasound money because you're seeing it before birth, you know?
No, ultrasound money, like it's like because an ultrasound, what you're doing, you're searching for the baby. So like, yeah, ultrasound money, you're searching for a narrative that will stick since 2015.
I mean, here you want me to say it? You're gonna make me say it, Marty. It's ultrasound money. It's ultrasound money because it can still be killed. But it's ridiculous that this is coming from David Hoffman, who, you know, he has a decent he has two podcasts. One is horrible, and then he has one that's good, pretty good, POV Crypto with our boy CK.
He's got a redeeming
where it's supposed to be like Bitcoin plus ETH. And like this guy, like he virtue signaled about not owning any Bitcoin, which like good luck, bro. I'm glad at least your money is where your mouth is, but it's, you know, not going to work out great for you. And then the second thing is he goes laser eyes. He puts laser eyes on, you know, after we like, God forbid they come up with their own fucking memes. They just have to try and use all of our memes. It's fucking insane. But I will say one thing is you can make a shitcoin with the most deflationary fixed supply ever. And it doesn't fucking matter because it goes back to what we said earlier, and shit is hard to change on Bitcoin. That's what it comes down to. It doesn't come down to whatever number we came up with. You know, Satoshi just randomly decided 21 million. He randomly decided that every 4 years, we're just going to split the supply in half. Like this was a decision that he just came up with. I like to think like he like came home like a little bit tipsy from the bar and like turned to his wife and was like, what do you think? Like 4 years, 6 years, like how are we going to fucking do this? And they just decided that number. It is what it is. The thing that matters is that it's fucking ridiculously hard to change. And meanwhile, Ethereum thinks they can emulate what Bitcoin is doing, while to get to that point, Vitalik and co these small this small set of stakeholders are literally forcing through this change. That them being able to force through the change is the proof that the change doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah. I mean, it's laughable at this point. Like the fact that like they've changed it so many times at this point. Like this next change is like nothing surprising, but it's like hilarious. They don't realize it's hilarious. They don't realize like the like once you set the precedent, like even if you make it quote unquote ultrasound money, like you can always change it in the future. The precedent has always already been set. There's no turning back. Like it will never be sound money because the monetary policy will never be set in stone because the precedents have been set already. So it's just hilarious to see them try this. Sorry for derailing the conversation. The last topic is pretty important.
Well, I just want to, before we get to the last topic, I just want to briefly bring up the fact that I had two individuals that I have always had I've always had a great deal of respect for, decide to come at me in a way that was just personal attacks. And they just decided that they were going to come at me with personal attacks.
Ooh, we're going to talk about it.
That is not substantive. That is not something that we can make progress on. That is not something that is productive. And I refuse to enable people to fucking decide that they want to attack me and attack my fucking principles, and give them any kind of press. So I will not discuss that any further on this fucking podcast. And if you want to talk about specific CoinJoin implementations, I will fucking come on your show. You can go and look back. Over a year ago, I went on Block Digest with the fucking lead maintainer and founder of Wasabi. And I fucking talked about it. And it's all there. Go back, look at it, go through Twitter search, look at it. I have a thread talking about these different threat vectors. Go look at that. But I will not give people press if they just fucking shoot and go for my principles, because that's fucking bullshit. It all speaks for itself. You can go back and look. And if you don't agree, then fuck off. Whatever. I don't care.
Hey, I mean, I think your principles have been very steadfast and speak for themselves. That's why I brought you. That's why I approached you to do this show and bring you anywhere. I approached you, said, hey, you want to do Rabbit Hole Recap? You named it Rabbit Hole Recap. Said, hey, you want to do a weekly news show? I like your principles. I like the way you approach the space. I like the way you think about Bitcoin and have a nuanced view. So, yeah, I mean, I stay out of it. I try to, but I did see that last night. I was like, what the hell is going on? Why is everybody flaming? Stop flaming, everybody. Your principles are sound, Matt, and you're very consistent. So I don't think you should let it get to you.
I want to be clear here, Marty. Like, I want people to discuss things. I think open discussion is important. I do not think, and I know exactly where this is going. Like the samurai guys, I'm the first one to admit that the samurai maintainers and a lot of their community act in bad faith on Twitter. They do not come into the discussion and decide to discuss substantive arguments. They decide to resort to personal attacks. And it's fucking exhausting. But the thing is the other side is so fucking guilty of this as well. And they will not admit it. They will never talk about the fact that they exaggerate every fucking claim. They do not act in good faith. No one talks about the actual implementations anymore. They just decide that they're going to just personally attack fucking everybody, anyone who wants to talk about it. And on this show, we have talked about Wasabi so much. I've given them so much press. Wasabi 2.0 comes out eventually, whenever they fucking say it's going to come out. Right now they're saying it's going to come out in 14 months or like fucking 10 to 14 months. They give like a little fucking the IQ curve, the same curve, the bell curve. They give you the fucking bell curve on when Wasabi 2.0 comes out. If it comes out and it's good, I'm going to fucking shield it on the podcast because that's who the fuck I am, because I care about fucking privacy. But if you're going to fucking come at me and you're going to pretend that you're going to make it about personal attacks, you can go fuck yourself. I'm just not, it's a marketing scheme. You know, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely fucking ridiculous. I'm sorry. You know, if you have a show, whoever you are, go talk about it on your show. Fuck you.
Whew. Hey, co-sign that. I agree. Like, just talk ideas, not people here. Yeah, no, last night, I mean, I noticed that was going on a little bit. I thought it was like an interesting juxtaposition. You were caught in the middle of that flame war, and I'm just like the most bullish person on the internet after the conversation about Sphinx. And I did not want to dive into that flame war. So again, Matt, I don't think anybody, particularly anybody who listens to this podcast, would question your principles. Pretty steadfast, very steadfast.
No one's defending Wasabi anymore. It's all hand wavy bullshit. It's like hand wavy bullshit, and then you just attack. You personally attack people. That's basically where we're at right now. And people will say, "Oh, just use JoinMarket." But meanwhile, we had a massive vulnerability in JoinMarket last week, and it was like me and 6 other people were talking about it. And which just goes to show that no one fucking gives a shit. And did any other show, like there's like maybe 2 shows that fucking discuss the JoinMarket vulnerability. So don't fucking give me this fucking shit.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Last topic. Maybe the creepiest mugshot I've seen in quite a while. Like this kid looked like he wanted to fuck the person taking the picture. But that Twitter hacker, what was this, last year? He was 17 at the time. Now he's 18. He got into Twitter's they're like God mode, their admin tools, and he started hacking a bunch of people and asking for Bitcoin. And he got some Bitcoin, I'm pretty sure, but he got caught pretty quickly.
And he fucked up on Wasabi.
And he fucked up on Wasabi.
That was a year ago, and the developers still to this day have made no changes based off of his fuck up and said that users were using it wrong and they should just not do that mistake, even though it's the defaults.
Yeah. So he agreed to 3 years in prison. His mugshot looks terrible from when he initially got brought in, and like the Zoom court
ridiculous.
case.
It's like the Twitter hacker. They're like making him out to be like this mastermind hacker. Like he got credentials to their God mode backdoor that allowed anyone to access any account, including the most powerful people in the world. And I remember, you remember
our boy, Biden, didn't he? Or Obama?
Yeah, and you remember, well, before Biden won, and you remember our boy Nick Carter was like, "Oh, it could have started a global nuclear war." He could have if he wanted to. Instead, he did like the worst Bitcoin scam ever. He did like the easiest Bitcoin scam ever. It was like very low effort, and it was because he had these credentials. So my question to the US government is, and specifically this judge who decided to give him 3 years, is if this is such a severe issue, if this is such a severe concern, maybe we should hold some of the most valuable companies in the world that reside in America, like Twitter, we should hold them accountable for providing this access with very little user access control. And I understand that mostly it was because of Corona. I imagine pre-Corona, the only way you can access this God mode is if you're in the office, right? And they switched to remote. So these credentials were being passed around like users, different employees' computers. And one of those employees probably pressed the wrong link in an email. And then all of a sudden that access credential got leaked out. Right. And I'm not saying that developers in general should be held liable, because that's a fucking slippery fucking slope. But I'm saying, like, if you are one of the largest broadcast platforms in the world and you build a back door that you allow your employees to easily access, and then people freak out because a teenager that was 17 years old was able to gain access and send out any broadcast he wants to send out, and then you give that teenager 3 years in fucking prison, so he's 20 years old when he comes out, that's a pivotal fucking part of your childhood. After he did minimal damage. I mean, if anyone who sent Bitcoin to those addresses, they get their Bitcoin back, presumably. If that is so severe, then let's make backdoors illegal. Let's make it so that these companies should inherently make access to different user accounts to broadcast more difficult. Like, why is that not the conversation? Instead of pretending that this guy is some mastermind hacker who couldn't even use Wasabi correctly. And supposedly Wasabi is leading edge, cutting edge. So like if he couldn't use Wasabi correctly, he must be a fucking idiot.
I like this framing and this pivot. Yeah, no, I completely agree. Like maybe you should be hiring this kid if he was able to get these credentials to get in there. Like 17 makes a mistake, but he does look very, very nefarious. Maybe this is like a media framing thing. Yeah, 3 years, 18 to 21. Could you imagine being in prison between those years in your life?
It would have fucking destroyed me. I mean,
Right.
and shout out to the 17-year-olds that have you know have had to stay in their parents' home for the last year as well, right?
Right.
But
It's a
it
different
would have
form of
absolutely
prison.
destroyed me. It's fucking ridiculous.
I hope you young freaks who may be listening to this podcast, looking at the distribution of age and demographics of who tunes in. There's not many of you, but I know there are some of you. Enjoy your youth. Don't stay locked in your parents' house. Go meet up, go sneak out with your friends. Drink beers. I'm going to say it. Drink beers, have fun, learn, talk. Don't let this you need to be separated because of corona stop you from enjoying your youth. I mean, that's another thing that we'll probably have to do a retrospective on in 3 or 4 years is as these kids get into their early 20s is like the amount of damage psychologically all this stuff had on the youth of the world, especially those who fell in the line and just did everything they were told. If you're especially when you're young, you should have a bit of a rebellious tilt. It's the time when you can mess up. This kid messed up. Now he's going to prison for 3 years. I mean, don't get as rebellious as like taking over God mode and Twitter and having people send you Bitcoin. Be a little smarter. Stack sats. Matt, you look defeated over there. What's going on?
You're the only one who could see me. I look this idea that you can just like just scare people into submission, man. You know, people don't want to talk about these things. No one wants to talk about any of this shit. There's gonna be so few people there's so few people who talk about Ross, right? There's so few people that are gonna talk about this Twitter hacker in a positive light. Why? Because they've been fucking crushed into submission. They don't want, we have like our 4 FBI handlers are listening to this episode right now. We want them to know that we agree with their policies. You know, we agree with everything they're fucking doing. And that's how people think. You know, they turn in their neighbors. They just fucking won't talk about privacy because privacy is likely illegal. And
Likely illegal.
it's exhausting. It's exhausting as someone who has spent the last fucking however many years talking publicly about all of this shit when really I shouldn't have if I just cared about, you know, myself.
If not you, then who? If not you, then who? Don't say you shouldn't have.
And it's just, yeah, it's just tired. It's exhausting, and I'm hopeful. I see the freaks stepping the fuck up, and it fucking fuels me. But it's just exhausting. That's all.
I know. It is exhausting, but it's going to be worthwhile in the long run, Matthew. If not you, then who? Seriously, if not you, then who? You got to have like a Spartacus moment. Somebody's got to stand up and say, I am Spartacus. If not you, then who? Thank you for doing what you do. Thank you, freaks, for listening. We're going to win. We are winning. That's the other thing, Matt. You seem very defeated right now. We're winning. It's not.
Oh no, we're fucking kicking ass, boys. We're absolutely fucking winning. We continue to win. We continue to win. Haters in disbelief. Don't get me fucking wrong. And I love you, Marty. I appreciate everything you do. I think everything that's happened here at Tales from the Crypt, between us, between the freaks, between all the maybe it's not easy to objectively quantify all the different side things that have happened as a result of freaks meeting freaks, maybe our future golf tournament, to all that shit, like fuck yes. Like I'm super optimistic. It's amazing. This is why I do what I do, right? This is why we do what we do. There are so many of our peers that are so depressed, that are so scared, that have no idea what the fuck is going on. And here I am, and I'm just beaming. I'm beaming in terms of future prospects. And that's because of all of you people. It's because of all the freaks, and it's because of you, Marty. So cheers to fucking that.
We do what we do because of you, freaks. Thank you guys for tuning in. Keep fighting the good fight. We're winning. Enjoy it. Be on the lookout for an episode with David Bailey tomorrow. There may be a special announcement about Bitcoin 2021. We're going to see you down there. That's all we got this week.
Stay
freaks.
humble, stack sats. I love you all.
Peace and love. Recording. Still live.